What up, Profileaters? Welcome back to my channel. Today, I have some good news to report, and I don't want people to complain that I'm always criticizing the government and only reporting the bad stuff. So today I'm going to report on some good news. The government has reversed the ban on cars that are older than 8 years old, and that is a good thing. So in this video, I want to talk about cars and coffee. Right? I've always wanted to start a meetup in Guyana for car enthusiasts, just like the cars and coffee meetups that we have in North America and Europe. But we don't have a car culture in here because the government has always had some really draconian and drastic and costly taxes on cars, and that has really ruined and destroyed car culture, or even the possibility of having a car culture in Guyana. The only kind of car culture we have is people who put tints on their windows and huge loudspeakers in their cars and drive around the city blasting music. We don't have people who, upgrade their horsepower or put in an ECU tune, or, put some nice modifications on their front end or rear end. So I want to have a similar car culture to there is in North America and in Europe, and to do that we really need lower taxes and lower restrictions on cars. And this is the first step. The government has removed the restriction on the 8-year ban. In other words, the previous government had banned the importation of vehicles that were 8 years old or older. And the reason they gave is they said that this is going to improve safety, right? And this was the dumbest idea since whenever, because safety has nothing to do with how old the car is. Safety has to do with safety features. So if you wanted to have safer cars, you would screen for cars with safety features like seat belts and airbags and ABS, anti-lock brakes, and active restraints, crumple zones. So these are things you can get from simply the model and the make of the car. They're listed there as specifications. You don't just have to eliminate cars that are older than 8 years old. And so this is one of the reasons why I couldn't support the previous coalition government, because a lot of their policies were just dumb, just stupid. So let us give Jack his jacket and acknowledge that the PPPC has made a good move in removing the ban on cars that are 8 years and older. And those of you car lovers know why this is important, because iconic cars are not made every year, right? Some iconic cars can never be made again, are not being made anymore. Cars like the famous Nissan Skyline, right? The R32 and R34. Those cars are classic Japanese cars. They're absolutely the best for modifications. You can actually upgrade the horsepower up to about 1500 horsepower. You could probably you modify the suspension and the front end, the rear end. So car enthusiasts know that the Nissan Skyline was a iconic car that will never be made again. Cars like the BMW E46, the E38 M5, the E39 M5, the E38 740iL. These are cars that are classic. BMW doesn't make them like that anymore, and these are cars that you can modify, and they're iconic cars. So number one is you want to remove the ban, or the reason why removing the ban on 8-year-old cars or older is a good thing is because now you can actually develop a car culture. We can actually get classic cars and iconic cars into Guyana, right? None of this new stuff, which is really just bland. All of it just looks the same, right? There's nothing really appealing to me about the new Mercedes-Benz S-Class. It just looks like a Tesla inside. Now, if you notice the screen that they put on in between the passenger and driver's seat, it just looks like a Tesla, just like a Tesla's iPad screen. So iconic cars are always cars that were made in the past, and they don't make them that way anymore, and we still want to have be able to import them in Guyana. So the government started importing, this is the current government, in 2005 when they were back in office, they started importing BMWs. Right? Now, for those of us who know about BMWs, these are some of the most notoriously unreliable performance cars on the market. So I was living abroad at the time, and I heard that, Jack Day was going to bring in BMWs for the government to use, and I'm saying, what nonsense is this? What waste of money? If you look on the road now, none of those cars that were brought in 2005 was in 2004. Right? I remember it was like some kind of cricket event, and they're going to bring in like 10 of these cars, and they're going to be official cars for this cricket event. None of those cars are on the road because BMWs are notoriously expensive to maintain, and they're notoriously unreliable. So if you're going to choose to bring in cars, choose reliable cars, right? So while I'm giving them credit on the one hand for reducing the, removing the restriction, the ban on importing cars that are 8 years and older, I have to mark them down for wanting to buy 100 new vehicles when they could in fact simply repair the ones that they have in their hand. And this tells me of other bad decisions they've made in the past. Like, for example, they bought BMWs as official government cars, when in fact these are some of the most unreliable and expensive cars to maintain. Waste of taxpayers' money again. All right, so finally, we have a very unsophisticated car culture. Right, we like I said before, we have a car culture where only tinting and loud speakers are considered modifications that people are happy to sport about, to display. But if we're going to build a sophisticated car culture, in other words, if we're going to build a car industry in this country where car modification and building, actually manufacturing new cars, we need to build a sophisticated car culture where there's an appreciation for cars in the society. And that means we need to be able to remove the restriction on all cars, including the iconic cars that are 8 years and older, so that people can become aware and learn more about cars and all of the various manufacturers and types and makes and models. And so we can bring out the people who are enthusiasts, the European enthusiasts, Euro cars, they're Japanese enthusiasts, they're American muscle car enthusiasts. So everybody can be part of this car culture. And that is where we'll find the motivation and the inspiration to build and invent new cars. Like, for example, like I said, I have an idea for a company. I haven't registered this company yet, but that will build an electric car that is unique to Guyana. But where do we start? We have to start by making electric cars out of older model cars. Taking out the gasoline engine and putting in an electric motor, and experimenting and building a car based on a platform that is already established. That is how you innovate, and that's how you develop car culture, right? So the final reason why this is a good thing to remove the restriction on cars that are 8 years and older is because now we can develop a really vibrant car culture, and that car culture is what will allow us to develop a car industry in Guyana, right? We've never had a car, since the tapir back in the 1970s, we never really built any cars in Guyana. The tapirs were actually imported from Brazil and assembled in Guyana. But we have the potential to build our own cars and to invent our own cars if we will develop the kind of robust car culture that exists elsewhere. And removing the restriction on importing older vehicles actually allows us to do this, because now I can import a vehicle that is a good, reliable platform. I can simply experiment with it, develop a Guyanese electric drivetrain, test it, and eventually build an entire car from scratch, starting with modifying, an older model. So there, guys, those are my thoughts on car culture, cars and coffee. Now, I still plan to host these events, cars and coffee, after COVID, after we get over this pandemic, which could probably be another year until it's safe to go out there in groups again. But that is something on my to-do list. Cars and coffee, building a car culture, and then building a unique Guyanese car, right? Want to see more content like this? Click like and subscribe. In the comments below, tell me what you think about the government removing the ban on 8-year-old cars and older, and whether you think this is a good thing or a bad thing. Alright? And remember, you can share this video with friends and family around the world. Like and subscribe. Let people know what's happening in Guyana. Later!